Hello again, traders, and welcome back to the Hot Stocks Outlook for April 25th, 2025. I hope you all have had an excellent week out there in the financial markets. And as always, we're here to take a look at the most recent VantagePoint AI predictive forecasts. So if you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and click on the link down in the description below. You can get signed up for a live demonstration and learn all the specifics about how these predictive indicators and technologies are helping traders make much better trading decisions when out in the marketplace. Now, as we typically start out in these hot stocks outlooks, we take a look at the SPY ETF. And so we can see here year to date, we are now down 6.5%. Now, when we look at these 1 month and 5 day numbers, with the volatility that we're seeing, the market moves that much in a day or two now. And we're just getting a lot of noise. And so this is why it's especially important if you're trading individual stocks to find those areas where there's a very strong forecast and therefore higher probability that you're likely to see the expected type of move here. So this is a chart, and we'll go ahead and start here. We looked at this over the past couple of weeks, and it serves as a really nice example during a period like this of how we can walk these forecasts forward and again help us make better trading decisions. And so what we're seeing here is daily price action, where each one of these candles is going to represent a full and complete trading day. And the first thing that should jump out at you is you'll notice that right up against all that price data, that there is a black line and also a blue line value. So the black line that you see there, well, that is a simple moving average, or what we refer to as the actual simple moving average. And in this case, it's a 10 period. So it would look at the previous 10 closes, it would add them all together and then divide by that number. And that acts as a baseline for the VantagePoint trader, right? It lets us know where the market price has been. But obviously traders want to know, hey, where are prices headed next, right? And so what we're able to do is compare that black line that you see, or we might call a lagging moving average, to the proprietary VantagePoint predicted moving average. And so for this number to get calculated and then plotted on the chart every evening for traders, well, this is where that technology of artificial neural networks come into play, and they're performing what we would call intermarket analysis on shares of Bluebird. And so what that means is that there are known relationships that will drive and influence the future price of this stock. Now, that could be things like ETFs, like the SPY or the Qs. It could be some of the futures markets. It could be other individual stocks. It could also be things like currencies, right? Currencies drives the broader stock market, interest rates, gold markets, commodity markets, depending on, it might be trading a mining stock, might be trading a defense contractor. And so you have this unique set of what we would call intermarkets that go into generating these forecasts. And so specifically for Bluebird, we're going to get those updates every single night. And what happens is those relationships weigh on the prediction, right? So when we start seeing this blue line cross above the black line, well, those intermarket relationships are actually skewing this average higher and letting us know that average prices should start to move up. Now, that's the VantagePoint predicted moving average. And we can see since that point of the crossover, which is, again, some of this market noise driven by the tariffs and just a lot of news coming out day to day, there's been about a 6 to 7% rally in just the last 10 trading days. Now, in addition to that predicted moving average, you're also provided a couple of other indicators to help different traders of different timeframes really solve different problems, right? And so at the very bottom of the chart, you'll see this bar that goes from green to red and back to green. This is also utilizing that technology of artificial neural networks, but it's tuned to solve a different problem just over the next 48 hours. You can think of it as a couple of trading days. And so that warns the trader of short-term strength or weakness. And when we combine that with the overall trend, well, we can get an overall expectation of the forecast. And of course, last but not least, we always end on our predicted highs and lows. And so you're even given a intraday predicted high and predicted low range that's going to help the trader manage their opportunities. Again, whether that's entries, profit targets, whatever, in accordance with your overall strategy. And so you see here that since that bullish crossover had come through, notice how effective these predicted highs and lows are for the VantagePoint trader. You'll even see things like this, where you see this gap up day where you move up. Well, look at that. You're moving right up to the previous predicted high level on the chart and then pulling back from there. We get the neural index bearish. We get a couple of days of weakness, but really since the last week, since we brought this market through, well, what has happened? Well, we moved down to the daily predicted low and it pretty much moved higher ever since here. So really nice opportunity on the bullish side here, but you do want to be quite careful here, right? Because there's a lot of markets are showing high volatility. Some markets are not doing well, and many markets, and this is where VantagePoint is very helpful here, have done well since we got that news coming off of tariffs. And so what you can do is actually use the VantagePoint predicted moving averages to see, okay, well, where are these areas where we're maintaining above that actual moving average and the market is actually in an uptrend? Well, that would make a much better place to go ahead and do some trading. So again, nice example here of how all these tools work together, regardless of short-term, long-term, just offering a very robust forecast for the trader here. Now, here's shares of Amgen, and I wanted to bring this through just to highlight that not everything is going up here, but let's take that information and how we understand how to interpret these forecasts and then overlay that on this chart. Well, you see clearly that predicted moving average below the actual moving average. That's been going on for now almost a month and a half here in this stock. So clearly you can only short, take profits on shorts. But here's what's so interesting, right? As we get that crossover to the downside, notice the neural index is actually bullish. And it's letting you know that, look, the trend is down, but expect strength over the subsequent 48-hour periods. Once that neural index gets bearish, well, that's where that momentum starts coming in, and traders can look to exploit that, acceleration in the downward move. Again, you see the neural index gets bullish here on a not very exciting day here, tiny little gap up, but nothing much happens, but still warning you that, look, expect strength over the next 48 hours, expect that retracement in the market, but the overall trend, again, still very bearish. And so this is where this is effective, pretty much the opposite of that previous chart, right? When we get a downtrend where the neural index is bullish, well, sure, you might get some strength, but what is the overall trajectory and trend of that market? So of course, we can, again, bring in now even the finer tuned predicted highs and lows, and you see here that the market moves up towards these predicted highs. And obviously, if you're looking to short or trade a downtrend, you'd want to be looking towards those levels. It would offer good entries on the bearish side. Even after we got this huge, update here in the news announcement, notice this market just sort of languishes, right? Taps up a couple of predicted highs, but never gets into uptrend. And we see, pretty close to its longer term lows here on the chart here. So this is why it's very important to differentiate. Okay, well, when we got that shift in some of the markets, what markets are doing well and which markets, really aren't creating a crossover and actually still in downtrend, and certainly would want to avoid for any sort of trading, shorter term, longer term position trading. Here's Palantir. It's a very popular stock. And back to this point of, okay, well, which stocks have actually moved up in an uptrend, right? That's where our focus should go. Just keep things fairly simple here. You'll need to see the neural index goes bearish. Well, what happens? You get subsequent weakness in the price action, but never getting even close to a crossover the downside. And that's what lets you know, look, all you'd want to do here is go long, take profits on long positions, potentially use that to get some good entries on longer term position trading. And of course, the predicted highs and lows can be of service here, right? So as we get this move, you see we gap up and get a lot of volatility moving outside the range, but settling in towards these predicted lows, and then that resumption of the uptrend as we see really the confluence of the overall trend, the neural index here, the predicted high and low ranges slanted higher, and sure enough, that's where we see this market break out to the upside here. We can see the overall move here about over 20% here in the last 10 trading days. Just over the last week here, up almost 20%, 15 to 20% just over the past few trading days. So really exciting moves, but very important that traders really identify the differences between, Bluebird, Palantir, and then, things like Amgen here. Here's Copart. Again, another example, a lot of correlation currently in the markets. And so blue line crossing over black line, a lot of separation between that predicted moving average and the actual moving average. This is a car auction company. So, there's a lot of repos happening in cars. Potentially this market can actually do pretty well here. But you see here that market price is moving down towards these predicted lows and offering nice levels for the trader to get involved. Even after the initial movement to the upside, beautiful move down to that predicted low in the markets, never even returned to that level. So really nice move here in shares of Copart. We can again take a look at the overall move from where those predicted lows were, and you're up about 8% here in just the past 10 trading days in a very tricky market, right? Where we've seen a lot of volatility. There is some, nuances here. Everything's not just going straight up or straight down. Here's Denali Therapeutics, biotech stock, blue line over the black line, neural index bullish. Even where you get our neural index bearish signal, you actually see getting some sort of gap downs, the market not really moving for a couple of days before, okay, well, now it's ready to break out. And look at the predicted moving average here, right? Signaling a lot of separation between the prediction of the moving average and where the actual moving average is. And this is what I'm really getting to, right? Is paying attention to the separation between those Vantage Point predicted moving averages and the actual moving average can serve as a signal in and of itself, identifying, hey, where are the stronger markets, right? If we just think about the S&P 500 itself, you've got 500 options potentially on where to put a trade on for that week. Of course, you want to find the most bullish option where all of these indicators and tools are in confirmation there. Now here's Molson Coors. And again, just a great example of how all the tools work together, right? Sometimes we'll get these really strong moves higher. Sometimes we get these big collapses that all happen in very short periods of time. But sometimes the market just runs sideways, and that doesn't suggest that there's not some money to be made and some trading to be done. But you need the right tools, right, to get the most out of that opportunity if the market's not moving a lot. So you see here, this market's just sort of crept down from 60 down to about 58. But let's look how accurate all of the predictions are, right? These daily predicted high and low levels. And you see here offering up these levels to say, look, if you want to short, take profits on shorts, that would make the most sense. Again, you get a little accustomed to seeing these sort of days here where all the price action is bearish for that day, right? You never trade higher. And then what happens the next day is just going up to that previous predicted high level, which should, again, already be on your radar as a potential for where that market's likely to trade. And then, of course, the uptrend happens. You start moving down towards these predicted lows once again. So again, a really great example of, potentially some nice trading opportunities, but also just letting you know, hey, what areas should I avoid? What areas have actually pivoted to the upside when we see here in Bloomberg, Palantir, Denali, Copart, you see a very similar chart. And that's sort of the point, is VantagePoint's exceptional at picking up on those correlations, understanding that, hey, if this stock's moving up, well, that just adds more, bullishness to this other stock. Some of those are, inverse correlations. Some may be leading and lagging relationships. This is where the software does an excellent job compared to what a human would be able to visually identify with all of these important price clues that are happening in the marketplace. So we'll go ahead and leave it there for the Hot Stocks Outlook for April 25th, 2025. Thank you all for watching. Best of luck, and bye for now.